Hey, Natalie. Welcome to this work in progress session. Just based on our conversation today, we just wanted to give you a bit of an insight as to where we're currently at, the ideas we're playing around with it, and matching that to the direction. Now, just briefly, this is just a work in progress. So think of it like a sketch done on the computer. There's still layers of refinement and, massaging to get it to the final products. But what we're doing, given the deadlines, we're just expediting the process rather than presenting a you know packaged finished version in a couple of weeks. Instead, we're sort of peeking behind the curtain and just doing it as we're going, just because we've got to work quite fast on this. So let's get started. So some of the considerations I came up with, in thinking what does this need to be. Some of the things we're selling is this idea of experience culture. This is not just going to the races. This is not just betting. This is bringing people into a community, bringing people into an atmosphere, a community. And the reason why I like experience culture, because I think that taps a lot into the next generation of what they want, what they're after. There's no mistake why we go to Airbnbs and suddenly they're a little bit more of an experience rather than just a bed and a dining table. So experience culture, I think that brings us very into the now. And I think it also gives a good focus for the marketing content. Yes, we can post a picture of a horse, but let's relate it back to, well, what's the experience culture around this? How we bring people into this culture, this experience. I think that's going to help to shape the direction from where marketing and the messaging can go, especially when you're pumping stuff out every day or weekly. It needs to have a reason for being. Another one I thought is intelligent, smart community. So again, this is not just about coming together for a bunch of drinks, dancing and getting drunk. There is still a level of intelligence, insights, knowledge that the community have. So this is not just meeting up at a bar. This is also integrating into the sport itself. And I think the reason why this is important, because once we start putting out this marketing content and we're sort of playing around with experience culture, we need to define the boundaries of heading too far into just the party scene. So there needs to be sort of a cohesion, but also an equilibrium between the two. And then finally, stories, drama, and inside scoops. So stories meaning just more than the race, more than the numbers, more than the odds, more than the stats. It's about the why. Why is this race like this, or why is this horse the fastest? Why does this trainer do that, and so on? Because I think tapping into the why, that is the story itself. And by drama, I don't necessarily mean gossip. By drama, I mean going behind the scenes and seeing what the challenges are, the human part of this. Because when we go on our social media, it's so inundated with content, it's oversaturation and content overload. What we really want to connect to is the stories, the human stories, like why people do this. That's why people are fascinated. And that's why that F1 show, brought a whole new fan base into it, because it's not about the cars. The cars is just the, pun intended, the vehicle to tell the stories. And inside scoops. So, seeing what's happening and so on. So let's dive into, again, this is just a work in progress, but let's have a look at where we're at the moment. So here are some options that we're playing around with. Now, I know in the proposal I put forward to go for like sort of a building on what we've already got. I haven't actually gone around to that part yet. I've just been exploring newer ideas. So again, these things do take time. And if time does allow, if, the direction is to head in that direction, I can look at evolving the current one as well. But these are completely new styles. So we'll briefly discuss them, keep the video as short as possible. This one has a bit of more of a shield, more of a sporty feel. I think this is suitable if the club has a very sort of sports first focus. It does come across as strong, bold, and team, a little bit like a union type thing. Um, Looks like a football club. I think this is quite strong on that sport element, but I think it can also probably take away from the more entertainment side of things. You know, the more, I guess, the party going. This one was just a sort of a wild card to try something different, something unusual, just to see, you know, what it can look like. Dynamic meets something bold. I like the TTC as, you know, the letters, the abbreviation. I think it rolls off the tongue and can become recognizable. And finally, the third one here. This one's very different, but I really like this one. And this one might be the one that I favor so far. It's different, and I think it encompasses a lot of what we're trying to achieve. So, yes, we've got a horse in there, but when we think about our experience culture and the community around this what we're doing here, it's not just about horses. So to just have a horse there, I don't think it's that literal. What this is about is bringing, you know, a sense of community, bringing that, you know, that experience, that party culture, and the intelligence. So a couple of ways we've done this is, yep, we've got a horse. You know, it's quite a noble pose, quite strong, but not overly masculine. It's got soft edges, but also not overly feminine. The font itself is quite contemporary. It has an element of fun and liveliness to it, but it's still quite strong. So it's not understated and doesn't it doesn't detract from a sport. And this little star up here, reason why I put that in there is because it serves a purpose, and that purpose goes to the intelligence. So you can sort of think, well, how do we draw that conclusion from a star? So a common symbol, which this has been used now, you'll see in a lot of apps and a lot of software, it's starting to become a recognized symbol representing intelligence. Intelligence around artificial intelligence. So let me just give some examples. So what you'll start to see is this shape is used a lot more on icons when anything comes up around AI, like from Google. And it's not a logo. It is just becoming the conventional, you know, sort of symbol for intelligence. And so that's why I like where it's utilized on this, because I think that can sort of tie into the intelligence of racing. You know, racing does involve data, it does involve numbers. And I think, you know, it can be represented as a star, it can be represented as energy, it can be represented as, I don't know, something very cool. But I think it can also lead into what more and more is going to happen in the future, people recognizing that as a symbol of intelligence. At least that's my prediction anyway. So they're the symbols I've got so far. I favor this one, so I've just explored a few things with that. Oh, so for the tagline, I thought going something very simple, and simple as in take me racing. What I really like this, and what I really love about taglines, is they just tell exactly what you're doing. And so what I like about this for the Turf Club, TTC, is this is coming from the perspective of, it's written from the perspective of someone wanting to go to the races. And it's like, you know, I want you to take me racing. And racing is really cool because racing doesn't just mean the horses. Racing can mean, you know, the cups, the events. It can mean, you know, the after party. It can mean, you know, community events, the weekly meets. It can mean the podcast. You know, for instance, when they're doing deep dives into like behind the scenes, you know, I want you to take me, the person from the outside, you know, take me racing, take me on this journey of racing. So it's very simple. Take me racing. I think it can be read in many, 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 many ways. And I think it can apply across the board to, you know, everything that you provide. But I also think it's the word racing has a very evocative, um, you know, emotion to it. You know, racing as in the heart racing, I think it gives energy. You know, it has this sort of, you could see it as adrenaline, you could see it as, you know, statistical, you could see it as event driven. And I think whatever walk of life and demographic that the person looking at it's coming from, I think they're able to pull their own connotations, but also their own, you know, their own need, I guess, from that. So there are a couple of things. And here, you know, sort of playing around with this intelligence, I've just utilized that little star diamond thing. I thought, well, this could be a cool secondary symbol or a secondary logo that we can utilize as well. You know, so sort of become recognizable for that, because I can imagine events, you know, having big banners. You know, you can have a combination of this logo here, but you could also have this, you know, sort of subset element to also tie everything together. I think that would look very cool, very clean, and very contemporary. But I think it's also very modular, meaning that we could apply this to a range of things, you know, from signage to buses to whatever. So I think it's a really cool element, and I really like it. So here's just some examples. Again, this is only work in progress, so I haven't really massaged this to any sort of final output, but just to give a sense of how it will come together. There's still some, you know, some room to improve, but we get the general feel of what it's conveying. This is how the logo can sit on some color, like that. This is just some examples of a banner, just off the web banners, but it can show you, okay, well, this is the new, let's say the title font or the header font. So on, there's just another example. You know, we could do billboards, whatever it may be. Also, what I like about this logo is that I think that it feels like that it still honors the legacy of, you know, the 170 plus years the club has been going and established, because it does have you know, I kind of see it has that a nod to a very, you know, prestigious, and it has a heritage feel in it, in a modern, with a modern twist on it. So that's what I like about it, because it can look classy, but then you can, you know, throw this on, you know, bright colors, and it can also look modern, contemporary. So it crosses a couple of worlds. This is just what it would look like in a reverse, so it's not white. I wouldn't go black, but this blue looks really cool. This is just an example of how it would look if we replace it on the current website. And that's it. That's it for the work in progress. So this is what we've got so far. Again, I've leant towards this one, but you know, we can still, you know, we can still evolve these. And this is just another variation I've got on the ends of it, the horse turning the other way. I think out of these, I prefer this one just because everything's moving forward. It feels like strong, you know, it feels noble, and that's it. And there's just what it would look like, you know, let's say in a repeated pattern. So I think it's cool. It's, you know, recognizable, and I think it says a lot without trying to over explain it. And that's it. So what I'll do, let me know your thoughts. I will reach out on Monday and I'll put just more of a refined package together, and I can PDF that through. This will give you something that you can share around, get some feedback from the team, and then we can move really quickly. So to keep the time frame moving quite fast, you know, if we can sort of have a feedback in a 24-hour turnaround, that means that I can jump straight onto the changes and apply them to campaign graphics. So while you guys are figuring this out and making some decisions, I will get the campaign brochure, the sponsorship brochures designed, ready for proofing. Then once the logo's approved, we can just apply that and everything will be great. So thanks again, and have a good weekend. Bye.